of the distinction of solitaries, and of the excellence of true and perfect ones. 30th Contemplation. Now then, my love and my life, it is necessary for us to speak to you now of the good and of the excellence of solitude to true solitaries of spirit and body. Alas, my love and my life, what is man since the beginning of sin, if not a continual effusion of his whole self unto created objects, which draw him and make him enraptured by them to take delight in them until his heart is drunk, and to repose thereas in his last end? Now, without speaking much of similar miseries of man according to the state of his corrupt habits, we see him and consider him at present in a state of his reformation, indeed of perfection acquired in love and by acquired love, by your divine infusions and communications, as well as by his diligence and active fidelity to respond to you incessantly and with his whole self, according to the strength and the very active and very intense operation of your same spirit and love in him, in such a way that, by succession of time and of active love, vivaciously, ardently, and continually, he has merited from you to be totally changed, according to all his habits and appetites, and in consequence according to their acts, from carnal and earthly into spiritual, more or less excellently, participating in your divinity, because of the excellent similitude and resemblance that he has to you in his whole self, in his appetites, in his acts, in his manners, gestures, and words. So, my love and my life, we suppose him to be perceptibly and ardently full of you and of your divine operations, and yet just as spiritual as he was before without you, I mean without your direct assistance and very abundant material, carnal, and earthly communication. In this way, as much he was dissipated, so much is he recollected in the unity of his heart and of his sensory and superior powers, according to the successively ordered gradation of your divine loving flow in him, which makes him no longer want to see or hear anything but you, not to speak of anything but you, to occupy himself night and day only with you, abhorring his former life and first ways of life, though honest and licit, even apparently virtuous, more than death and hell, seeing in what he is and what he has from you, the infinite reasons of two so extreme and different contraries. So, my love and my life, without stopping at an explanation of the past, we bring ourselves to explain in some manner the present state of the solitary, according to the true life of your infinite spirit in his whole self. So, it is, my love and my life, that, tasting and experiencing you in the strength and sweetness of your divine splendors, good, gentle, sweet, delightful, great, powerful, wise, in infinite infinity as you are. It is you to whom he is from then on attached, and inseparably united and conjoined by the very close and indissoluble link of your infinite and infinitely desirable love, not being able to marvel enough at the past in himself and the present in you, and from you in him and for you. So, my love and my life, his solitude, of spirit as well as of body, is to him a full paradise, in which he spends his days and his time in 1,000 diverse acts of very intimate and very intense love towards your majesty, by which he plunges and melts at the very sweet and delightful fire of your love, at all that you are, without any remission or indulgence whatsoever desired by him, to perfect for you sovereignly his very loving sacrifices, in accordance with which his infinite desire is to give you infinite satisfaction forever, at whatever price and in any event. But my love and my life, since his vicissitudes are great and frequent, and his successive sentiments greatly diverse and in great number, he sees and perceives himself incessantly to have infinite need of your extraordinary assistance, by means of which he might give you faithfully his whole self, exempt from impurity and corruption, when it comes to his heart as well as all the powers of his soul, and all his bodily senses, and in his whole body and its members. This accounts for the fact that, remaining continually turned inward in his own depth, he disposes all his forces and powers, as much as it is possible to him, to his same depths, at which you reside sovereignly as at the place of your own dwelling and repose. where, seeing you and speaking as lovingly as is possible to him, he is delighted with you and in you, as in his own origin, his eternal principle and his sovereign, last, supreme, and beatific end, in whom he reposes above the sensory violence delivered to him by the devils or by his nature. In this way, my love and my life, just as solitude is the place and the course ordained for combats of love, so too does it happen that the same love taking extreme pleasure in the sight of the faithful and generous combatants gives always, in time and place, full and entire victory over his own enemies to the true and loving solitary. In this way, the beginning of solitude for the solitary, in your first derelictions and subtractions of your guidance and felt attraction, is a harsh, troublesome, and painful war, but by his fidelity and patience in lovingly sustaining, bearing with you, and enduring you through the diversity of crosses, of spirit as well as of body, upon which it befits him to be crucified and to die there all alive, then afterward his war changes into a loving game, pleasant and delightful, which allows him to make sport of all his enemies and of all their stratagems, in the very great confidence that he has in you, his love, his life, and his all, proportionately diffident in himself, knowing enough by experience that he is nothing. Nor has he anything of himself but all misery and all sin, the property of which is to flow incessantly to nothing. And thus, he spends his time from then on delightfully and pleasantly in praising you lovingly in spirit and body, so much so that solitude is to him a paradise of voluptuous delights in your loving spirit, with the divine habits of which he is very excellently clothed and illuminated, as with a divine ornament of all good and perfection, which renders it very accomplished in your eyes. In this way you are infinitely pleased in the dwelling of the true solitary, within the enclosure of which you work your diverse and noble operations to your full pleasure, seeing that the subject always responds to you by his active or passive fidelity in all that you are with all that he is, without varying in the least or bouncing back, in a manner of speaking, if he is such as he ought to be and such as I suppose him to be. But all that presupposes a great deal of time, and all the ways, exercises, practices, and sentiment of successive love that, from time to time, operate diversely and newly very great things in the solitary. This solitary, I say, the more he is active in responding to you with his totality, the more you are pleased to elevate him within your immense light, and then, by the same means, in your very ardent fire, which enflames him in his totality in a very ardent and inconceivable manner, in which he enjoys unspeakable pleasure. It is thus, my love and my life, that the man made flesh has become spirit, not just any spirit but a divine spirit, divinely dominated by you in his totality, to be, by a high degree of participation, a deity on earth in his mortal body very excellently, according to which he is very excellently similar to you. All this infinite truth, containing in itself infinite explanations, can better be seen and known ineffably in very simple, very eminent, and very extended vision of spirit surpassing all explanation, but that of explaining broadly from words going outside to such an effect and for their full manifestations. On the contrary, my love and my life, it is necessary for us to reduce them concisely inside, in such a way that nothing of them goes outside, and that all their spirit and their taste should be savored, understood, and comprehended in a manner of speaking. For my love and my life, it is thus that the true solitary must go forth and not otherwise, that is to go out while remaining, and to remain while going out, which is properly to show oneself to oneself, and self to similar selves. The most excellent mystics explained and worked out all this in evidence in diverse flow, theoretical as well as practical, the broadest and most developed outside for that which is less, and the most reduced and concise inside for that which is most, to the total reduction of the all to the all for the all also. That itself is all that can be said and manifested of all things, according to the eminence of my ineffable view. But it is something totally assured that the more the solitary is excellent from you and in you, the more he is practical and contemplative. Now, my love and my life, your loving operations, continually active and flowing to the active and continual flow of your very admirable love, by their luminous and inflamed manifestation, make and render those who are enamored with you practical rather than theoretical. In this way, your love starts with your loving ones by practice, begins and is achieved by practice, practice which is yet not without theory, but theory, acquired by the success of practical states, is worthy and totally consummated at the same successive states of your acquired love. In this way, by all this, we show rather what your enamored ones must be in their solitude, so as to draw them out by persuasions or persuasive reasons, to induce their spirit by manifestations and excellent riches of the same spirit in them who have heard that. As I have always said to you, my love and my life, a number of people have up to now amply written of such things, which I am only reducing concisely as in a single eminent view and in a single discourse, conformed totally to the supereminence of my simple depth. But by this and everything similar, this true lover sees what he is and what he must be, what he must do, and his immobility in doing and enduring it as well as in dying. Now it is true, my love and my life, that we have often made up explanations similar to this one for ourselves. That is why we are not explaining further the particularities of it, as I have done in those places. But I will say about this that all such explanations, and this one itself, are and show sweetness, clarity, and breadth of the contemplation manifested, manifested in evidence to its own subjectivity, as I already said, and to all those who resemble it. This animates more and more the contemplative solitary, and stills it to look fixedly in the mirror, in which he sees essentially and divinely all things in the eminence of his vision, the beauty of which he enjoys while plunging himself into the abyss 1,000,000 times at each hour, I would rather say continually, in you is eternal and infinite object. Within the totality of this, being transfused, melted, and lost, he spreads out and takes delight therein, more and more, above all created and creatable beauties. This object enraptures him of itself and in itself, more and better, in its totality, to the point of being totally overflowing and abounding, in such a way, I say, that therein he is made into the object of his contemplation. Now, my love and my life, we take great trouble to encounter, or rather to conceive, and still more to express the essence of this, because all negotiation and states are so much surpassed in nature that spirits less luminous than this one cannot approach it from afar. So this spirit is said to be and is called inaccessible because it inhabits your own light, inaccessible to every creature except to those in this state. This can be said and understood, however, as much as the creature is able, elevated by your light into your light, and not to your light as belonging to you, which is neither accessible nor comprehended wholly and totally except by you. Thus it is there that the solitary remains and reposes in fruition and very simple, very unified enjoyment, somewhat like to that of the future glory, and not to their total capacity, as I have always shown in my writings. Now, even though it is true, my love and my life, that what is perfect and essential to solitude is laborious, even according to diverse gradation, because of the variety of your effects upon the solitary, as well as because of the great nudity and destitution of this solitude as well as of us on the level of feeling, yet solitude is nevertheless sweet and delightful in itself to the solitary in that itself, if he is such as I suppose him to be. Namely, if he has passed faithfully through all the painful straits of successive love in self. Finally, he finds himself having arrived at sweet and continual calm of spirit, enjoying from that point forward, in your divine strength and the rest of your gifts as in all yourself, a peace and sweetness, which is the effect of your ineffable light in his totality, and from his totality to yours. Nonetheless, if he fails to observe himself without ceasing, he could easily go out and soil himself in some manner, by himself or with creatures, for, we say, to lower oneself or to become dissipated, to soil oneself. This is all too easy to do. If he does not resolve to die continually to all events that he feels on the part of his nature, denuded and destitute of all his powers. So, in this sense, he always has enough to sustain and support himself, indeed often in total ignorance of you and of self. In this way, in such extremities, he judges and feels himself to be the most miserable and the poorest of all Christians, even totally unknown and forsaken by you, my love and my life. Adhering, however, very simply and very nakedly to you by a very simple and very naked faith. This faith he knows not, inasmuch as it is so far away from his senses that it is spirit rather than a sensible or intellectual image perceived by the understanding. From this faith the soul lives very excellently in all that you are, even conformable to the supereminence of its state and constitution. But I have treated of all that amply elsewhere. Now, what we show here is that each one, called lovingly by you to the desert of loving solitude, must do his best in order to have you, and in order that you may have him also as you please and as you wish. And he has you too, reciprocally, without restriction or letting go on his part, incessantly in pursuit of you with his whole self, and not of your goods, to exalt you purely and simply, excellently and fittingly, without turning back or swerving elsewhere. This being so, my love and my life, it is very certain that you make men gods in solitude, and that loving solitude is the retreat very highly and very excellently participated in by very high deities on earth, some having more of you, others less, conformably to the measure of the grace and of the flow of your infinite love in them. All these are and contain your marvels under diverse gradations and manners. In them you are very diversely exalted and magnified, by yourself as well as by your creatures. In this way, one would not know how to give enough praise to solitude, not of itself nor in itself, but in you and your love, and in the creature incessantly loved by your love. It is there, O my love and my life, that you take your pleasures and delights in flowing as you please within those enamored with you. It is there, and from there that you draw all to yourself, so that all is from then on inseparably united and conjoined by the link and indissoluble knot of yourself in your infinite love. So, in the measure that the creature surpasses itself in its secret solitude, the notions and manifestations of your secrets in yourself cause it in yourself also an unspeakable pleasure, which is increasing always more and more, on your part as well as on that of the creature. The reciprocal pleasure of the two lovers is augmented more and more. This is also what increases more and more, while there remains some amative forces to be lovingly consummated. The infinite reasons for this are in the mutual and reciprocal love of two infinite lovers. It is of necessity that one of these should fall to the totality of the other. I mean that the creature should fall to the totality of your deity, my love and my life, so as to enjoy you their full sail and to full satiety, conformably to the infinite ardor of its love. Thus, my love and my life, these earthly places are places of your pleasures, where you make and enjoy your paradise on earth, and all your friends enjoy their own paradise, which is yours, in their very dear solitude. Yet this solitude, though it be so dear to them and desired as it is, they still do not possess as their property, being as ready to leave it according to your will as they willingly possess it. Although it is true that going outside is true death to them, it is all one. They die in that itself, so as to value more your will in your full conformity than the infinity of your bounties and of all your gifts, of which they believe themselves to be totally deprived in their veritable nothingness, having no regard for these things, in themselves and for themselves, glorying only in following you eternally, totally naked, always dying in very eminent practice of very naked love, very essential and very simple. So, my love and my life, these are your faithful imitators in earth, all become spirit by dint of loving you, of following you, living a life so renounced and so lost within the desert of the solitude of spirit, that it has neither bottom nor shore. These remaining lost entirely in themselves and their own life, sensible and distinct, distinct and active, active and elective and passive, passive and mortal, eternally dying above all resignation. All these you possess, O my love and my life, in your infinite pleasure and contentment. Now, there is here a very great gradation of way, of life, and of state, as I have always told you. But by dear life, even though solitude is necessary to all, yet it is not much use except to those who take advantage of it, and is pleasant and agreeable only to the sovereignly perfect. This is why solitude is acquired bit by bit, in the measure with which those who begin to serve you receive your divine influences. The fact of their having some strength and vigor in them renders solitude sweet and pleasant for as long a time as your perceptible influence lasts. But you, as by necessity and well-being, take back this influence, and they, finding themselves left to themselves alone, would not know how to suffer the painful efforts of solitude. To this those who guide them accustom them bit by bit, presenting to them the importance of being severed from the very delightful milk of your divine consolations, so as to be no longer children. Thus solitude takes its beginning, increase, and perfection in men whom you desire to clothe, adorn, and accomplish from you in all that you are, for yourself, for your infinite exaltation and glory in them. In this way, my love and my life, whoever is not full of your spirit and of his gifts and habits cannot remain usefully, much less to his contentment and infinitely less to yours, in solitude, given that it is the place of excellent warriors. Now, even though true solitaries may be solitary according to the Spirit, these being among men of necessity and not otherwise, yet the solitude is not entire and perfect, as much as can be done if it is not of the whole man. That is to say, as much of the body as of the spirit. On this I would have many things to say, but your solitary saints have excellently, amply, and sufficiently written about it, having explained all the circumstances and particularities of it, to show and bring to light the hazards and great dangers that are found in it, and even the most subtle traps and snares of the devils and their diverse and weak temptations, as well as to avoid and surmount them, having roused their readers by lively persuasions to apply strength and remain constant in the infinite excellence of this good. As these persevere, all solitary, this good is made and rendered very delectable in the face of death. The order and the rules of this in them all, O my love and my life, are in your infinite and eternal providence. But still it is necessary to know that, to want to reduce one's body all alone in solitude, is to put oneself into hell all alive, and to expose oneself to innumerable great evils, and to be lost and damned eternally. The reasons for this are infinite on the part of men as well as of devils, who would not know how to encounter anything better than the folly of such people, not only to do evil to them but to others, if the occasion presents itself. That is why the worst of what the saints say about this is veritable, my love, namely that the solitary monk or hermit is either an angel or a devil. Behold what it is to rush into one's conduct, and trusting oneself to oneself, without knowledge or wisdom or movement of your divine spirit in that and for that. But it is not this that it is a question of here, but of seeing the excellence of solitude in the perfect, and the sovereign and supreme excellence of the holiness of true solitaries in their solitude, in whatever place they might be, whether in religious life in community, or in the most remote deserts far distant from men. By in community, I mean of such an institute or not, provided that it is permitted. Now, my love and my life, it is yet necessary that solitaries should be excellently guided, if this can be done, by very spiritual persons, for want of being guided directly by you, or of being able to guide themselves into your infinite, true, and right light. Now, one does not know how to say or think how much the true and perfect solitary must suffer from torments and assaults on the part of the devils. The reasons for this are infinite all across the spectrum, as from one opposite to the other. Now, my dear love, one cannot think sufficiently how much your glory and exaltation are great in all these persons, and how much the benefits that you give to men for love of them are great. Should it please your majesty, my dear love, that the number be 100 times greater than it is, the earth would be a true paradise, and you would be much more exalted on the earth than you are. But so what? It is not the order of your infinite eternal prescience, liking better to deprive yourself of more in your creatures, so as to cherish more the least as far as numbers are concerned. And this you do without doing wrong to anyone, given that you owe nothing to anyone. And nonetheless you give sufficiently to all, those whom you have wanted to and want to cherish being reserved to yourself as your special and particular friends, who are and do in their diverse constitutions in your spirit, your paradise on earth. Now it is they who contemplate all in the force and simplicity of their very open and very active eye to penetrate all very easily and without trouble, as being of the effect and manifestation of their very high contemplation. For if the common men could see the beauty and the ornament of such souls, they would remain enraptured in admiration at the sight of such excellent beauty. But my love and my life, it suffices that they are yours, and that, as such, they are your pleasure and all your glory on earth. For if contemplating is infinitely more than speculating simply and according to love itself and all things, you have a great number of them on earth who see you and contemplate you incessantly, having totally exceeded and surpassed themselves and every created thing, which contemplates you with pleasure, eternal in your eternity, very simple in your totality. Also, you have others who contemplate in part and speculate excellently in part you yourself, and all that pertains to you. It is to this that our exercises bear witness. In the supereminence of these exercises, we have given a subject matter of eternal contemplation to supreme and sovereign contemplatives, or at least a subject for them to put into eternal practice. And to speculators we have given subject matter, here as well as elsewhere, to speculate lovingly, strongly, and simply about divine things, such speculation being the effect of very high contemplation. And as I have always told you, my love and my life, the supereminent view of this mystical knowledge without knowledge is very broad in its explanations, and nonetheless very subtle and very sweet, but our practices are very narrow, very unique, very abbreviated, very compendious, and very simple. Thus have I given to those ardently in love with you something with which to occupy themselves in you, and with you, and more directly in you, in very intimate and very reciprocal love, besides what is written of the same subject here and there by the same mystics. But my love and my life, leaving for the time being all that of which we are not directly speaking, we go back into our solitude and to our solitaries, to make understood to every judicious person who will be able to see this, or other similar or better things on this loving and simple reduction, for it is they who maintain the world, and who keep it from going to ruin. Given that they are incessantly interposed for this, between your infinite majesty and its very just fury, the indignation and the chastisement of which the worldly, who fill the world, store up and accumulate incessantly. Thus have I wanted to make solitaries see that which they will see everywhere in my writings, that they must do their best exemplarily and to the edification of all, when it would befit them to go out and converse with men and in private, in the profound desert of their solitude, so that all that I have said and written of them, here as well as elsewhere, might be found above all that to be very certain and very genuine in them, having to this effect sincerely represented to them their state, and diverse constitution in diverse way, and in consequence, and by a very just reason, the eternal and finite duty of some as well as others. It is quite true that I do not know how to speak so well of that of which I do not have experience as those with whom I concern myself, that of being solitary and separated entirely from the company of men within the most remote deserts. But the ancient anchorites and other religious have amply written about this, and I myself have not spoken of it, and now I am speaking of it, in part through experience and in part through conjecture. Such solitude, so lost, is a greatly wonderful thing, and still infinitely more if it is perfect and complete in every point to the totality of its subject. Oh, how such a solitary would have something great to unveil to your infinite servants! Now my love and my life, even though the number of these may be small, it is nonetheless true that there are some of these kind in Christianity, and maybe more than we think. Moreover, that which is greatly precious in your eyes, my dear love, is greatly rare and unknown, even by your best and most intimate friends. Now, if the life of such persons who are so similar to you is so precious and so dear to you, so much the more must their death be precious to you, and is precious to you too. These souls, I say, enjoying full sail you who are their love, all their good and their eternal and infinite recompense, care even more about the earth and those who inhabit it, so that they might be helped, assisted, preserved, and changed from good to better, and from bad to good, mostly by your majesty. In this way, they exercise incessantly their charity by their intercessions toward your majesty for the good of the world. Now, this great and small number of people recompenses your love with its own love, in its very excellent life, as also you recompense their love with yours and with your infinite love, being more and more pleased to exalt and magnify them in the very wide amplitude of your divine gifts, although very diversely, outside, some in one way and others in another. So men often see shining in the lives of many your infinite power and virtue very miraculously, as effects of your gratuitous gifts, by which men who see them and know them as excellent deities on earth, feel ardently touched and moved to praise, exalt, and glorify you infinitely forever over the fact that you mediate excellently the good of vile and miserable human sinners by others of the same human nature, eternally chosen and elected by you, and made and rendered divine for such an effect. But ordinarily, these friends of yours remain hidden and unknown to men, from whom they live as separated and distant, in their secret solitude and in hiding, whether in religious life or in the depths of the deserts, as if they no longer lived upon the earth. Thus do they have only their bodies on earth, and their souls, by their thoughts and conversations, in heaven, for the least and for the ordinary, infinitely beyond created nature, which they surpass continually in itself and in them, with a vivacity of admirable love in all yourself, at which they live, act, move, and suffer, with a total, unique, simple, and eternal attention and repose, above all apprehension, all consideration and discretion, above all simple flow and enjoyment, and eternal fruition in all yourself, which absorbs them and swallows them up to the point of such a reduction of their totality in your immense totality, more and more, until the supreme consummation of them, of all that they are. According to this consummation and in it, they are perfectly identified with you above all similitude of yourself, so to speak, to the supreme and unique point and infinite depth of their very unique, very simple, and very eternal exemplar, which you are, according to your divinity as divine human, God and Savior of men. From these souls, in this little bit offered, you incessantly receive perfect holocausts, which you burn and consume, without consumption of the subject, in the totality of your immense fire, infinitely beyond yourself and all created things, to your infinite pleasure, honor, and glory, and to their infinite good, pleasure, and repose, eternally eternal in your totality, in which they are you like you, but from you and in you, taking none of all that for themselves, except eternal confusion. These persons are always dying in perfect and profound resignation. Adhering to you nakedly and simply, they are always doing nothing but giving you equally and with a similar love, simple, unique, and eternal, that which is already perfectly yours from these persons and in them, for their supreme luster and perfect accomplishment. For as they have nothing within the senses belonging to them, for themselves, they are totally reduced, consumed, and transfused into very pure spirit, to the totality of your infinite sea, where they are you yourself, without distinction or difference. They are transfused from all that can be apprehended or conceived by man burdened by the weight and the gravity of matter, nor even by his own human spirit, as naked and subtle as it might be in nature. And the more and the better that is and is done on the part of such creatures, the more you reign happily and gloriously in each of them, to the proper exercise of your infinite beatitude and felicity. The operations of this are ineffable in their totality. So you are there, my love and my life, in your own center, in your peace and repose. There is the eternal enjoyment of your labors, or rather of your divine game, which mediates, in all its admirably luminous and secret exercises, the end so excellent and noble as your spirit himself, received and possessed so very many times so marvelously, in a negotiation so divine and so ineffable as yours and theirs, so communal, so desired, and so excellent. that the creature conceives nothing that approaches from afar the excellence of such an intimacy. There in vastness we have fire all-devouring and all-consuming, taste and ecstasy, which have all made diverse states and constitutions for this blessed end, the order of which has been all ineffable in each one, in manifestation and fruition, in pleasure and repose. But here, in this last and supreme point of identity, above all similitude of you in your totality, all souls of whom you speak to us are and remain in very simple and ineffable enjoyment of all that you are, in very eminent, very simple and very extended repose, of which the delightful notion and fruition being ineffably as they are, exceeds supereminently by far all means that ever preceded them. As such, it is in this state and in this constitution that the soul dies as far as the senses go, and is happily alive according to the supereminence of its depth, or rather of the depth of yourself, infinitely beyond its own depth. In you the soul is irretrievably lost in its entire transfusion above all explicitness of concept. In this way, it is a very wonderful thing to see a pure creature so sensory and so spiritual, so human and so divine. But the order of your loving majesty is requiring this, and thus in the special order that you have eternally ordained for that. You have arranged that all might be entirely divine by an entire and total subjection of all that is sensory and inferior to what is superior, of all that is superior to the Spirit, and of the Spirit to your infinite majesty, in the totality of which those persons are truly entirely and perfectly your spirit as yourself. For if such creatures are your prodigious subjects on earth, they have there also great regard, not for reflecting upon what they are, but for reflecting upon what they owe you in their totality eternally. Within the innermost depths of the loving desert of solitude of all the spirits lost in this solitude, each one of these possessing you full sail, and as much as they wish in their banishment, so long and so troublesome, which, although it is so troublesome and painful to them, they bear, nonetheless cheerfully in the ineffable enjoyment that they have of you in the stable and fixed sight, and in the ineffable fruition of your beauty and savor. And as I have often told you, my dear life, above all this and all that they do, they crave you and love you, in you and for yourself, purely, infinitely beyond all the results they will see from you and in you, in their ineffable glory in all your eternity. So, where there is naught but your divinity, all is divine, living from your divinity in your immense all in its totality, which is in some manner in relation to and in proportion to your infinite all, ineffable in vision, in comprehension, in attainment and penetration, in breadth, length, height, and depth, to the constitution and state of whom the works and means respond in kind. Now, since these souls are impassible according to all the order and the truth of that supereminence, it is in that supereminence that they desire to give you satisfaction eternally, without ever missing a single moment of your eternal fruition, sight and contemplation in their ineffable repose that you produce in them, by the continual effect of your eternal and enrapturing operation, within which you manifest yourself, simple, immense, wide, long, high, and eternal, and ineffably profound, infinitely infinite. In this way, it is there that one sees you and perceives you. Indeed, one possesses you and tastes you, unspeakable and incomprehensible, in your creatures all lost in your immense totality, by entire consummation of their totality in your totality. Indeed, if there nothing in all immense life, love on your part having never ceased this loving negotiation except when he has reduced these purely patient lovers entirely to his whole self. You also enjoy reciprocally each one of them, so fully and entirely, that nothing on their part can any longer be opposed to your infinite love, in such a way that just as you possess them divinely and in your infinite love, so they also possess you in love, action, and deiformly deformed truth. I speak thus, not in excess, but in truth, since, being to you what they are in reciprocal and mutual love, scarcely can there be anything more or better on their part in this mortal body for their veritable and eternal loving holocaust. The ways are greatly diverse and multiple in this, I know it well, but that is not what we are dealing with here, but rather with presenting ourselves to your infinite majesty sincerely in the abundance of your infinite spirit, according to all that we are, entirely melted and lost in your infinite superessence, whence we shall never come out to live by ourselves or for ourselves, into the profound vastness of which we plunge into the abyss more and more, while there remains a single point of our holocaust to consummate. The reason of reciprocal love requires that infinitely all over. For if this, our supreme repose, satisfies us and contents us above the state of the wound of love and above the insatiable hunger and thirst of the same love, it is there, and in that, I say, that we are very content in our vacancy and in our repletion. Now, when we have the happiness of enjoying you fully in all that we are, face to face, totally full, even brimful, deity in all our soul and our body, we will then be very far from feeling and speaking of vacancy. But here and at this hour, my dear love, we are constrained to speak to you thus in part, given that we inhabit the desert of this mortal life, but also the sweet and profound desert of our mortal body, a concept that encloses so much circumference that nothing but your infinite majesty knows in truth all the elements it contains. Your majesty knows these elements, I say, since it causes them and makes them, and we who, in undergoing them, lose ourselves in them, would not know how to conceive of any of them, I say, except at an infinite distance. So, also does it happen that, when we would make the effort to do that ever so little, so to speak, then we would understand each other. In this you are seen to be so admirable that, just as you are very much a known God, so also you are a very hidden and secret God, I mean in this last genre of your excessive operations of so high and so prodigious a supereminence, within the souls of your special brides, whom you have eternally chosen for yourself for the exercise of this your negotiation, so supereminent and so ineffable towards your pure creatures. You being the infinite center of these brides, they are made yours by the successive and continual effects of your consuming love, or rather of your all-consuming fire. For the rest, we can say, and quite appropriately, that there are quite different dwelling places in this desert, which is triple in itself, namely the sensory one, the rational one, and the interior and purely spiritual one within the central depth, in which you dwell naturally, beatifying yourself there, in all the activity and aim of your infinite gaze and of your love. Of all these deserts so different and so dissimilar, I would have infinite things to say, if I wanted to bring them up, but speaking at present of our inaccessible and superessential desert, it is there that it is necessary for us to remain fixedly stable because of having reached it, such as we are, to delight happily in your ineffable and very enrapturing beauty, of which we are eternally spectators at the sight of all the infinity of your immensity, beyond this our essential desert, in consequence very simple and very spiritual. Thus it is there that we are fixedly captivated immobile in contemplation of all that you are, such as you are, uniquely sunken into the innermost depth of yourself, where and in whom we enjoy you and all your perfections in infinite love, in immobility and into the very stable stopping of our eternal gaze. This you make happen, and we suffer it, and we also make it happen with reciprocally loving activity, lively and active. And the more that happens simply in us outside of us, the more we are supereminent in the very simple constitution, which produces and captures in us this your continual and eternal loving regard, according to which we are simple and unique, ineffably like you yourself. So being incessantly enraptured by your so simple and so subtle operation above ourselves and totally outside of ourselves, it is there, I say, that all the creature succumbs to sheer life, so as to live eternally only from you and in you. Being for this effect much more and much better a spirit rather than body or flesh, nonetheless, there remains for us always some effects that try to depress us. But the spirit enjoying its ineffable repose cannot be attained or soiled by its corruptible or even by its natural acts, honest and licit to those who would want to follow them and must follow them. In this way, my love and my life, since you have on the earth a great number of so excellent sovereignly deiform persons, in the totality of your eternal and infinite deity, the best, I say, from among them find themselves living in your own life, as if they were without body, having only pure spirit, to which all the rest of their totality is entirely and perfectly subject and united. So, in your life by which they live, they are very fully enriched by all that is yours, which is as inconceivable and unspeakable as it is ineffable, for it is yourself above all that. Now, this so rich and supereminent type of solitary is so agreeable in your eyes and so useful to your church that above all the rest which is of lesser flight, constitution, and habitation, you do and will always do to their great pleasure all that they require of you, in the order of your infinite love. That is what we have already told you, my dear love, and notwithstanding all consideration, these your dearest brides are not taking delight in anything of the world except in all the effects of their desert. Whether you make these effects within them, or you permit them outwardly by men and devils, in any way or manner whatsoever, that will be always and eternally one unique and eternal pleasure. I would have many particularities to specify here, but even all that is duly supposed in this state, all that which results in men of a commonly holy life having no knowledge of the life nor of the works of similar persons, for whom there is for a long time nothing but living death, and in another time there is nothing but delightful, indeed blessed life, almost entirely exempt from death, if the events from outside are not very extraordinary. For, to tell the truth, death is not found here except through the powerlessness of the subject. But yet, if the occasion arises, such death almost has only a moment and makes very little impression outside. It is, I say, that, my love, which is and which must be too. That is why I represent it to myself and to my peers, so that this accidental death does not pass beyond its limits in us, through fault and lack of attention and circumspection to ourselves, if we forget ourselves to that point. Now, my love and my life, it is this desert so spacious and so desired, which is your delightful paradise on earth, and it is this desert that is the happiness and the paradise of the creature, within the depth of which it sees its God and its Creator, which you are, in the very desired and desirable face of whom this creature is continually agitated and enraptured, full of joy and exultation in its immense totality, in a simpler and more ineffable manner than one can conceive. It is there that love reposing in its proper center is very pure charity in itself, in the uncreated abyss of the superessence, in supereminent height, inaccessible to creation. It is there that love animates the creature for all the effects that the same love requires and will require eternally of it, according to the supereminence of all its reasons, which are all contained in a very simple, very pure, very abstract, and very separated vision. In this and with it, the creature is as satisfied as it is illumined and accomplished in you yourself, who animate thus this same creature in the eternal and infinite order of your good pleasure here below, in living as well as in dying. But in the order and stability of this perfectly consummated state, each one enjoys you wholly in the same manner, within your totality, conformable to those similar things that we have explained in our exercises, in which we have made mention of the same desert we are now presenting. There we said that it is much to be feared that many should be bored with it, because of the little satisfaction that nature finds there, totally forsaken in that itself, and because of the eternal death, very diverse in its effects, and in consequence very tiresome to nature. But as we said in the same place, if I have a good memory, that would be the most unreasonable and miserable thing that could be imagined. All the reasons for this are infinite in yourself and from your fruition, which the creature has from you. The more it perceives simply and nakedly, the better and the more purely its enjoyment is noble and excellent, to the point of the fruition of yourself, of whom the eternal effect is very simple, very eminent, very ineffable repose, constituting and stabilizing firmly all the best of the creature in your totality by itself, in such a way that, henceforth, you live fully as you wish and as you please in such souls, all lost in your deity, in whom or from whom you will never have the least resistance in the world, in the order and the constitution of such an ineffable habit, very infused and very acquired. Your Majesty understands me well, for it is in this desert so highly situated and so delightfully inhabited and possessed that the renounced life, eternally dying, takes place. Of this life there has been no one but you who could have known or must have known the deadly results, according to the variety of their kinds and according to the abundance of their frequency, which is continual rather than with respites at intervals of time. But since it is all that the creature enjoys here, I mean the good of all that which you are in yourself, in your blessed essence and life, in the fruition of whom we live as if without the memory of all these states so different and so prodigious. It is there that it is necessary to remain in your total pleasure and ours. In this enjoyment, I say, we are not spared from dying because of the infinite setting apart of the created from the uncreated. And nonetheless our constitution is such an ineffable delight in our total consummation that it seems to us to be no longer dying, but purely suffering the sweet violence of our present natural destitution. And nonetheless, in effect, we die of the sweet and desired death of simple love. This death does not seem distinct in itself from our own life, which you are in all yourself, from whom we are, live and move, and not at all in us. Therein, to say it better, we are totally dead in the true and essential manner of dying, so as to live blessedly from your own life, in all the immensity of your infinite fire, where we rejoice in infinite pleasure with all the blessed spirits, who live eternally lost therein, above all the distinction and the difference of all the personal fecundity, and of all that must forever result from there, in profound sea for the eternal fulfillment of the blessed. It is enough to tell you, my love and my life, that above all that infinitely, you are our eternal and infinite happiness, as I have always specified for you in enough detail. Thus, my dear love, it befits the creature so veritably to possess its desert, that never do you have the least occasion for the least discontentment in the world through this creature's fault, through failure, I mean, to make itself attentive. It suffices for it, as one truly dead, very justly and rightfully to have your life, and all that is yours for its own. For if it is true, as it is, that all things have their time, the time of the creature is to die, especially here, so that you might live all alone in its life, having fully been made and fully become life, by dint of dying to its own life, in naked love, renounced and resigned, according to the exigency of the desert to solitaries. Now, it is true, my dear love, that we are not speaking here in the manner of your intimate friends, who, entirely lost in their eternal origin, which you are, leave there all that which is and can be of the creature, to see and contemplate your majesty alone, triune and one, in trinity and unity, in order, I say, to see you and contemplate you above all that in yourself, but to say it better, without all that even while in all that itself, as being a single thing in your infinitely infinite. Divine nature, above and beyond all affirmation and negation. In this way, these solitaries have explained all the flow and the state of this ineffable constitution in your infinite nature alone, and in the act and the exercise, very manifest and very eternal according to us, but still very manifest according to us who are totally melted in all the vastness of one's infinite and profound sea, in such a way, I say, as if you were contemplating yourself very manifestly in each one of them, without in a manner of speaking accommodating the creature nor its sovereign, eternal, and manifest contemplation in the effect of your actual and eternal gaze. But as if nothing of that was in the creature, sovereignly deform in the infinite amplitude of all that is yours, these solitaries have contemplated you in yourself and, in one and the same glance, in the creature and the creature in you. This very divine and very hidden knowledge they have ineffably produced and given to those who were already full of it, or who must have been soon to be filled. Such knowledge and light is so full of mysteries and of secrets, that all created intelligence succumbs to it by plenitude of familiarity with all that beyond all admiration. In this way, they have given all this ineffable explanation, so developed and so reduced, so long and so concise, so multiple and so unified, infinitely beyond all explicitness in your unique unity, in the order of all your fecundity, and then, beyond all your fecundity itself, where all is equally drawn in supreme repose, in your same very unique unity, according to what we have explained elsewhere. Still others have made it the object of their study to see you, to contemplate you, and to explain you even in all that you are and all that you do, in yourself as well as in your creatures explicitly. But since implicitness swallows up everything, it is implicit reduction of that itself which pleases me infinitely beyond the flow going forth from all that itself, whatever this flow might be it even the first of the seraphim, far exceeding all human intelligence and even made divine in the profound abundance of your divine illuminations. For even all that would be for me, in my ineffable view and in my ineffable fruitful repose and in the totality of your infinite superessence, so much less than what I am, for I am yourself in yourself, in my totality, in all that you are. Infinitely more than all that, in the experiential faith, which, above faith in itself, has all this full fruition to the infinite degree, indeed infinitely, to tell the truth. But, my dear love, if I implicitly accommodate so much my blessed return back into your totality, to the contemplation so implicit, so compendious, so deep, so hidden, so secret and so mystical, it is for the sake of seeing myself in this same instant as yourself, like yourself in your immense totality, all from your all, although in effect I am less than nothing outside of you and without you. And also because of the necessity I have to see myself therein such as I am, beyond the outward manifestation, and as if the manifestation had never been. It is these truths that I have explained in other terms elsewhere, where, you know well, my dear love but since I see myself as a man among men, that makes me reduce and limit myself in my explanations, very implicitly and uniformly, very simply and ineffably in my very ineffable experience. In this way, my dear love, if it is my vision and my taste that snatch me up very rapidly, it is without a doubt because your infinite essence is beautiful, good, and perfect, infinitely beyond all created and creatable concept. So even though my concepts may be of ineffable and infinite savor, I see and perceive well that, in that very thing I express, that I express nothing. Therefore it is not my goal to express something of what I am and what you are, but my infinite eternal pleasure is that, seeing all you, I express nothing of you, nor would I even know how to do so, in all the abundance that you might give me of yourself. Ah, my love, if only the men untouched by this would see what I see, know what I know, experience what I experience, all the earth, oh my love, would be turned into your paradise. Ah, infinite God, how astonished they would be to see themselves so changed, from head to toe, as they say, being so ineffably renewed in the totality of your deity, by so very many so prodigious effects of your infinite loving spirit for their sake. But that is not so much what it is a question of here, since the eternal order of your infinite prescience has not been such. It is thus your infinite gaze, along with its ineffable gentleness and sweetness, that enraptures me and forces me very freely to contemplate you very eternally above all admiration and all concept. So it is in this, your sweetly and impulsively impetuous and conjoined attraction and intraction, that consists all the present and eternal felicity of the creature, made very eternal, in that movement itself. In this state so superavine in this mortal exile. This secret, my dear love, is totally unknown to men, even of great holiness. Although they may have entered often enough before into the solitary desert, nonetheless they have not at all approached this supreme part, from which they are as far away as they are secretly desirous of their own life and secretly attached to your gifts, or, it must be said, attached to feeling your presence. Moreover, even though they are dead, it seems to them, to all things, nonetheless they carry them by very hidden ownerships and satisfactions, which they themselves do not know. And yet they are mightily holy, and your majesty knows well the means of preserving them and purifying them of these their subtle and delightful and very unknown quests of spirit, exercising them within and without for this purpose, in whatever manner he pleases. But it is the truth, that if something is lacking to them, it is that they do not have the perfection and holiness of the inhabitants of our desert. But it is not so much a question of that here, since it befits us to see everything as it is, all things being diversely great and wonderful on your part, my dear love. Regarding myself, I am in full fruition of all my desires for this hour, expecting the most or the best that your majesty in its totality will give me when it pleases. And since it is the order of one who is dead to remain in his tomb, this is what belongs and will belong to me, since such is my share and portion, where I will contemplate you pleasantly in all events in profound simplicity, which in truth never lets me go forth to vital reflection outside, which is much to say and understand in my senses, and which you know and see infinitely better than I do. But I have conceived all and written that which pertains to this elsewhere. That is why I do not otherwise desire to repeat any of it to you here. For if the summary that I am making for you here, and even in all this work, contains so very much circumference, it is because all this is in all the plenitude of the eternal generations of eternal love in itself. This love produces in those who are totally and divinely dominated by it infinite effects very conformed and very similar to its proper cause, which is love itself, operating thus all this abyss of so prodigious and divine fecundity, very ineffably beyond all that preceded all these most recent effects, which are and show forth all this love itself, in all its immensity, to the creature, which has this infinite good of enjoying it at the expense of its love, and infinitely above all that, and nonetheless it is necessary to understand of all this, as in all similar truths, that the creature remains creature. For, oh my very dear love, if all this surprises men so much, the reason for it is infinite. It is that, more by their fault than by that of your love, they have only received from you spirit and strength for the common flight, at the height of which they have situated their dwelling place and perhaps constituted their repose. For this the reasons are very diverse, in them as well as in you. In what concerns us, in whom your operation is one and unique in our ineffable regard, the reason of eternal love wills that, for our part, this same operation of yours should never receive the least alteration. We see your church in admiration asking the rest of these souls, principally the children of grace, who will be equal to you within the clouds. In this admiration, she speaks truly to men of this divine and very happy region in which we live to the fulfillment of our wishes. This region is of full repose and of full peace, which is nothing other than this, our very pleasant and very loving desert, to which we sacrifice ourselves in eternal holocaust, in a manner totally ineffable in every sense and manner. For if it is necessary to seek subjects of impassibility of spirit, it is here that one finds the Church sovereignly illustrating and honoring her subjects, as with the richest and most precious ornament with which love, which is you yourself, my dear life, can decorate your brides in this desert. There would be many great remarks and great explanations to make about all this, but it is all that itself which we must very necessarily suppose. We could take this as a reason, in the order of elementary nature, to make seen all this abyss of truths by all plausible and manifest demonstrations, according to the explicit order of the most loving and most learned mystics, your intimate friends. But I have always fled from all explicitness as much as I could, so as to reduce myself concisely, conformably to the exigency of my eternal love, who neither knows nor wills the going forth from self, seeming to himself to be annihilated and cancelled out, when he finds himself, at whatever distance, separated, different and distinct and disunited from his very simple and ineffable depth. This is why I conceive and I digest my own inmost depth, my love, my desire, and my operation within, abhorring for the same reasons to go out, infinitely far away and different from your infinite essence, life, and operation, even from your infinite beauty in your infinitely immense and spacious all, in which the order of the vicissitudes is void. But so what? There is nothing to say but that. For if it is necessary for us to reduce our ineffable vision to our power, to very few words, so clumsy and displeasing to men, even that is too much and more than I would want, since my words, as essential as they may be, are conformed to myself rather than to your infinite essence and beauty, which I see, and which enraptures me in its eternal enjoyment, in such a way that I would not want to let go of it nor turn away from it, because it is, in itself as well as in the creature, all well. Indeed, infinitely so. Plus, oh my love, since your paradise is such within similar men, it is up to them to be sovereignly faithful to you, and since they enjoy you and yourself, it is necessary that they should never turn away from it for a single moment. In order that your intentions might not be frustrated in them, and that they too might never have a single moment of vain life. But what good does this frequent repetition do, since the dead person must never live, neither for little nor for much, considering that whoever is dead is dead? Besides, my dear love, if the very simple and very ineffable contemplation that I have of you in your infinite totality is to me infinitely other than the speculating that I do about what is yours in the highest supereminence of concept that is possible in the ineffable vision that I have of you in all that you are, I like infinitely better to understand and operate according to the unique and eternal love, very simple and very ineffable in your totality, than to see you according to pure knowledge, which, due to being purified as it may be, shows and manifests its subject evidently, both totally outside and inside. And when by this pure knowledge we remain within, even that is infinitely less than you, whom we enjoy happily, purely, and fully, without exception, distinction, or difference. This is why very learned ignorance suits us as it ought and very well, since, being infinitely enamored as we are, above sheer love in all itself, we abhor natural knowledge as being the bread of men who are purely moral. Much more than this, indeed infinitely more, I say that we do not even want the knowledge of intimate love. And yet it happens in the order of the same love that, the less we desire it and think of it, the more excellently and admirably we have it, indeed incomparably above all that which is inferior to us in constitution to the same love. For if the utterance alone of love could suffice for us to understand and express all that we do not think we know, even when we assimilate it, that would be our infinite pleasure. But since that itself and all that we draw from you, for our full and complete satiety, all that, I say, being but form, although infinitely expressive and delightful, all that, I say, is nothing to us but the going forth and the production of yourself, which you make in us and through us, as through your own tools and instruments, eternally ordained by your majesty for that. That, I say, is because all your production offered as evidence to us, your own subjects, is nothing to us with respect to yourself. There is an infinite reason for this, which is that such production, such as it may be, is created, and your deity is infinite and uncreated. In this deity do we exist and move, but we see it happily in supereminent constitution of state totally firm and fixedly immobile. So that is in effect to contemplate with an eternal, very ineffable vision all our beatitude accomplished in your totality, while awaiting the so desired good of our dissolution, which we enjoy superabundantly in our totality. So all this penetration and anticipation so unique, so simple, and so profound, enraptures us more and more strongly by itself and in itself, according to which in our felicity we are in full enjoyment of all good in all you, in the order and truth of the actual, continual, and very subtle effort by which you lovingly agitate us, continually in all that you are. Of this we would have so many things to say to you in our exuberance, that this truth itself is sufficient to render us poor and sterile in our abundance. Such are the infinite fruits and effects of your love and bounty in your special friends, together with their labors and their loving conduct. By means of this progress, so happily made on their part in all that, they are gods from God, of manner and state infinitely other than the commonplace, in the order and state of your holiest and most intimate friends in earth, who honor you and praise you infinitely above all praise and all exercise, practicing all the same your infinite majesty in the innermost depth of his essence, all the same as that which has never gone forth in evidence to itself. This concept is only of you alone. Thus, my dear love, the creature is useful to its creator, as I understand it, and the creator is the infinite good of himself and of the creature, his bride, in that itself, and such a creature is not a liar, but the same truth in the totality of her spouse, my dear love.